How's it going? I want to go over the user interface of the mission editor before you begin making missions for the Apollo campaign. First of all, in the center here is our viewport of the world. As you can see, we can see all of the entities in the world, and we'll also be able to change the way we can see the views of the world in our viewport, which we'll discuss here in just a second. On the left-hand side is our mission tree. This is all the objects that are inside our world currently. On the right side is our content library. It allows us to add more objects into our world through the viewport. At the top is a ribbon bar, and I want to go over some of these that I feel are kind of important. Obviously, we have our cut and copy, and we can also paste objects as well with Control V. So if I grab one of these boxes here, I cut it, and I hit Control V, it pastes those objects for us. The next one is our measure mode. This is one's really nice. So if you click it, it gives us this square looking icon. That's how you know you're in measure mode. You can see if I click it again, I have the arrow again for my mouse cursor. Inside measure mode, we can left click and drag, and it'll give us the distance from one point to the other and also the heading from one point to the other. And if you hit backspace, it will remove the last waypoint that you've placed. The next three icons are our different views of the viewport. So we have this one, which will switch between this mode and the perspective mode. And you have this one, which will switch between this mode and the perspective mode. So I use this a lot. While we're talking about the camera, let's talk about how we can move around in the viewport. So right mouse and drag allows you to move around. Mouse wheel zooming in. And this works for both this top-down view and the orthographic view. Next is this focus on selection. So if I select the barrels and I hit F, it'll immediately focus on them. This is the same focus button as most 3D editors such as Maya, 3ds Max, Unreal, and Unity. This next button is the Set on Ground button. Sometimes when you copy an object and paste it, it will not be properly placed on the ground. When that happens, all you have to do is press this Set on Ground button. This is very common for fires. Although when you make a mission for enormity, you probably will not be making many fires. To use this Set on Ground, you just select your objects or object. In this case, I've selected many objects by left-clicking and dragging. And then you just press the Set on Ground button, and that will automatically set all the objects you have selected directly onto the ground. The next buttons I normally leave activated is a zoom on cursor. What this does is it zooms specifically on the cursor. As you can see, my cursor is at the top of the viewport, and it is zooming on that cursor marker. Versus unchecking this, if my mouse is up here at the top again, you can see that it's zooming on the center of the viewport and not necessarily on my mouse. I normally leave this checked. The next one is a draw and grid. It just draws a grid for us to look at, and that grid does not match the grid in game, which I find very annoying, so I leave it off. Show you one more time. You can see here's the grid right here and how it does not match our grid on the map, so I normally leave it off. The next ones are just the icon button, so you can see as I press it, it turns off the icons for the objects in our viewport, and this one turns off the text for the icons in our viewport. And then this one shows all the icons in every single group. I normally leave it off. Next one is our compass. Doesn't matter if that's on or not. This objects filter is the next one, and it's very important. Object filter allows us to filter objects by type. So as an example, I wanted to be able to select this icon. I can clear all and say I only want to see the translator entities. And when I hit OK, you'll see that the only icon available for me is the MCU icon translator. I'm going to go back to object filters and I select all again. You'll see now that I can select all entities. It's very, very useful for us being able to find different entities by types. The next is the mission tree. This turns off the mission tree on the left, and the mission tree again is all the entities in our world currently. And this button is our objects library or our content library that turns off this thing on the right hand side, allowing us to add entities. So if I go in here and I can click and add an entity to our world. And as soon as I do, it gets added to our mission tree on the left because obviously it's a new entity into our mission. The next one is our properties dialog. That's this guy right here. And the properties dialog changes depending on if we have no entity selected. As you can see right now, we're looking at the entire mission properties. Or if I select an entity, you can see it changes to that specific entity's details. The next ones, you should just leave checked. Just different views of the things in our viewport. This one allows us to see all the arrows for objects, which is a green arrows. This one does the targeting arrows, which are the red lines. Objects is green lines, targets red lines, and MES is our purple lines for events. And then this is selection, MCU selection, MCU unselection, and then this just shows the arrows for those different colors I talked about. Green for object, red for target, and purple for MES. Localization I normally don't mess with, and any of these buttons on the right hand side of our ribbon I don't mess with at all. Next, we have our toolbar, so we can do file and save. We'll talk about the save selection and imports a lot. You can save your mission, open missions, and so on. These are the different viewports. These are the same buttons that are in our tool ribbon. This search and select allows us to find different objects in the mission. I'll show you how to do that. It's very simple. So if we say find mission objects, we can say I want to find a specific, let's say ammo boxes. So we can do blocks because I know it's a block type. I can type in ammo box. I can say find. And here are the ammo boxes. If I wanted to select a specific one, I could select it here, add selection, add to selection objects selected in the found list. And now you can see I had box truck already selected, but now I have that specific ammo box selected in our mission tree. And I can close this and do whatever I want to do to that specific ammo box. The next one is the draw button. And again, this is the different types of draws that you can do right here. And I don't necessarily mess with any of this because it's all right here. Our tools button, I'm not going to use this too much, but one of the big ones in our tools button is the ability to convert all our missions if they get messed up. So here we have resave missions in folder. We often use this button for saving missions after a new patch comes out. Localization database, we're not really going to mess with. Test, not going to really mess with. Surface editing, definitely not going to mess with. And help, we don't really need to mess with either. All right, a couple more things. On the right-hand side, for our content library, when we're making missions for Apollo, typically we're only going to use the blocks category and the buildings category. Shouldn't really have to use any other category. Maybe the bridges category as well, but I would say sparingly. Okay, that's it for the interface and how to move around in the world. If you have any questions, just let me know.